You're listening to the CyberWire Network, powered by N2K.
Introducing ArcSight Intelligence by OpenText, an enterprise behavior analytics solution. Intelligence repurposes data you're probably already collecting to uncover patterns of behavior missed by other UBA offerings. With its powerful, unsupervised machine learning models trained continuously and exclusively on your data, Intelligence is your ally in detecting insider threats and novel attacks. No rules to maintain or thresholds to update, just context-rich threat hunting leads. Learn more about ArcSight Intelligence by visiting arcsight.com/cyberwire. The International Criminal Court reports a cybersecurity incident. ShroudedSnooper intrusion activity is both novel and simple. Criminal malware targets Chinese-speaking victims. The costs of insider risk. More on the casino attacks and related social engineering capers. In our Learning Layer segment, Sam Meisenberg drops into a CISSP tutoring session and offers some test-taking tips. Our guest is Aaron Brazelton, Dean of Admissions and Advancement at the Alabama School of Cyber Technology and Engineering. And the Clorox incident shows how one company navigates unfamiliar new SEC rules. I'm Dave Bittner with your CyberWire Intel briefing for Wednesday, September 20th, 2023. Reuters reports that yesterday in The Hague, the International Criminal Court said it had sustained a cybersecurity incident. Not only the ICC staff, but also lawyers for both victims and the accused were affected. The ICC's brief statement, communicated in its Twitter channel, said that the court detected anomalous activity affecting its information systems, at which time immediate measures were adopted to respond to this cybersecurity incident and to mitigate its impact. The ICC is investigating with the help of Netherlands authorities, but beyond that, the court has so far offered no further information. In particular, there's no attribution, but the most prominent cases before the ICC involve allegations of war crimes and crimes against humanity committed by Russia in the course of its invasion of Ukraine. The AP reviewed some recent history of Russia's troubled relations with the ICC, stating, "Last year, a Dutch intelligence agency said it had foiled a sophisticated attempt by a Russian spy using a false Brazilian identity to work as an intern at the court, which is investigating allegations of Russian war crimes in Ukraine and has issued a war crimes arrest warrant for President Vladimir Putin, accusing him of personal responsibility for the abductions of children from Ukraine." Russia responded to the warrant, Security Week reminds readers, by placing ICC prosecutor Karim Khan on its own wanted list. So, no attribution yet, but if you bet on form, put your money on Moscow. Cisco Talos describes a new intrusion set dubbed ShroudedSnooper that's targeting telecommunications providers in the Middle East. The threat actor is using two implants Cisco Talos calls HTTP Snoop and Pipe Snoop. Talos states, based on the HTTP URL patterns used in the implants, such as those mimicking Microsoft's Exchange Web Services platform, we assess that this threat actor likely exploits internet-facing servers and deploys HTTP Snoop to gain initial access. HTTP Snoop is a simple yet effective backdoor that consists of novel techniques to interface with Windows HTTP kernel drivers and devices to listen to incoming requests for specific HTTP URLs and execute that content on the infected endpoint. There's no attribution yet, and Talos says that the group's tactics, techniques, and procedures don't match any known group, so they're tracking the activity as representing something new. The report notes, however, that state-sponsored groups, particularly groups operating on behalf of Iran and China, have recently shown a strong preference for attacking telecommunication providers, especially providers in the Middle East and Asia. It's worth remembering that there are criminal gangs that operate in, from, and around China that represent a law enforcement problem not only for China's neighbors, but for China itself. Proofpoint is tracking suspected Chinese cyber criminal campaigns that are targeting Chinese-speaking users with malware-laden phishing emails. Proofpoint says, campaigns are generally low volume and typically sent to global organizations with operations in China. The email subjects and content are usually written in Chinese and are typically related to business themes like invoices, payments, and new products. The targeted users have Chinese language names spelled with Chinese language characters or specific company email addresses that appear to align with businesses' operations in China. While most of the activity is focused on users in China, at least one campaign is targeting Japanese organizations, which the researchers believe suggests a potential expansion of activity. Okta has told Reuters that the criminals from ALF-V, also known as Black Cat, and Scattered Spider used vishing attacks against MGM Resorts and Caesars Entertainment. They posed as employees and inveigled IT staff into giving them access to the company's Okta client. This enabled the attackers to obtain further credentials within the Okta identity management system used by the organizations. Okta said that 3 of its other customers, unnamed but said to be in the manufacturing, retail, and technology sectors, have recently sustained similar attacks. On August 31st, the identity management provider warned of this trend, stating, Okta has observed attacks in which a threat actor used social engineering to attain a highly privileged role in an Okta customer organization. When successful, the threat actor demonstrated novel methods of lateral movement and defense evasion. These methods are preventable and present several detection opportunities for defenders. Prevention would include adopting phishing-resistant methods for enrollment, authentication, and recovery, tight privilege management, and implementation of dedicated access policies for administrative users. Okta also recommends close monitoring and swift investigations of any anomalous use of functions reserved for privileged users. Of the 2 casino chains hit, Caesars Entertainment saw data belonging to its loyalty program affected, but was able to keep its operations online during the incident. The Form 8K the company filed with the SEC strongly hinted that it had paid the attackers ransom. MGM Resorts has had, by all accounts, a more difficult time. The New York Post reports that MGM continues to have trouble with its slot machines and hotel systems 8 days after the attack was detected. The company is estimated to be losing as much as $8.4 million per day in revenue. The MGM and Caesars incidents come as public companies come to grips with recently introduced U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission regulations mandating quick disclosure of cyber incidents deemed likely to have a material impact on a business. These 2 companies face an additional regulatory burden, Dark Reading points out, in the form of oversight by the Nevada Gaming Control Board, whose Regulation 5260 requires covered entities, including casino operators, to establish effective cybersecurity measures. In the event of an incident resulting in a material loss of control, compromise, unauthorized disclosure of data or information, or any other similar occurrence, a casino operator must disclose the incident to the board within 72 hours and undertake both investigation and remediation of the incident. There's another object lesson on compliance and materiality underway at Clorox. The cyber attack that disrupted operations at the major consumer products company was also among the first major incidents to fall under the SEC rules that went into effect on September 5th. Compliance dates for mandatory reporting are somewhat later, falling for most companies in December. The Wall Street Journal reviews how the company has responded publicly to the incident and it seems to be doing about the best that can be done under fluid conditions with imperfect regulatory clarity. Clorox has issued statements, including 2 Forms 8K, since the incident was disclosed on September 14th, shortly after it was detected. There are at least 2 challenges. The first is keeping reporting current as an investigation unfolds. One expert told the Journal, "A stream of 8Ks will be the new norm, because after all, investigation takes time." And the second challenge is determining whether an incident has a material impact on a public company. Materiality is a reasonable investor common sense standard that will doubtless undergo some clarification over time. In the meantime, when in doubt, file those 8Ks. Coming up after the break, in our Learning Layers segment, Sam Meisenberg drops into a CISSP tutoring session and offers some test-taking tips. Our guest is Aaron Brazelton, Dean of Admissions and Advancement at the Alabama School of Cyber Technology and Engineering. Stay with us. Struggling to secure on-prem apps with modern identity? Don't worry, you're not alone. Join industry leaders from Fortune 500 organizations to secure your apps on any cloud with any IDP, regardless of your environment's complexity. Meet Strata's identity orchestration platform, Mavericks. Say goodbye to the headaches of app refactoring and legacy tech debt. With identity orchestration, you can modernize legacy apps to use MFA or passwordless authentication in a few weeks, migrate from one IDP to another, and so much more without changing the app. No matter your IAM use case, Strata extends the value of your current identity investments. And the best part? You can try it for free today. Visit strata.io/cyberwire to share your biggest identity challenge, and they'll hook you up with a complimentary pair of AirPods Pro. Don't miss out. Visit strata.io/cyberwire. That's strata.io/cyberwire. Hello, dear listeners. Today I want to share and recommend a podcast that I recently became a fan of, and I think it's worth your time, and you should check it out. The show is called Compiler, and it's produced by the folks at Red Hat. The subtitle for the show is Simplifying Tech for Tomorrow's IT Leaders, and the show certainly does that, but it does a lot more. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The reason Compiler has earned a regular spot on my podcast playlist is the genuine, authentic curiosity of the show's hosts, Angela Andrews and Brent Simoneau. Angela and Brent are your guides for journeys into all sorts of tech topics that are relevant to folks in cybersecurity and IT, and they do it in a way that's casual and conversational, but also smart and concise. This is a show that respects your time while feeding your curiosity. And Compiler has something for everyone. Doesn't matter if you're just getting started in your tech career or if you're a seasoned pro. I'm willing to bet that you'll find the Compiler podcast both entertaining and informative. So check it out. It's the Compiler podcast from Red Hat. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts. Many have said that if we want to meet the workforce gaps facing cybersecurity, we need to reach kids earlier in their educational journey, provide them with experiences and opportunities to get a head start on a potential cybersecurity career. The U.S. state of Alabama is doing just that. Back in 2018, Alabama Governor Kay Ivey signed legislation establishing the Alabama School of Cyber Technology and Engineering, a high school located in Huntsville. Aaron Brazelton is Director of Admissions and Advancement at the school.
When you're in a traditional high school, your class selection, it's like a booklet. You can pick your classes. It's a buffet. You can decide, do you want to take this or you want to take that? At our school, it's more of a seated dinner, chicken or fish. We prescribe to you the classes that you're going to take in order for you to get through your program in 3 years. that's another thing that makes us different is our entry points are ninth grade and 10th grade. So we enroll rising ninth graders, so current eighth graders going into ninth grade, and rising 10th graders, so current ninth graders going into 10th grade. And the students, they come in, they learn in ninth grade on campus, they learn in 10th grade on campus, they learn in 11th grade on campus, but their senior year, they are full-time in internship with one of our 75 partners. And you can go online and you can check out all of our partners in education. And two of our biggest gifts came from Raytheon Technologies and also Redstone Federal Credit Union. But our partners span the spectrum of industry. We have partners from commercial industry, from private industry, from DoD, from government, from K-12, from higher education. And so that senior year, kids take everything they've learned in theory for the past 3 years and they apply it in practice their senior year full-time in an internship.
Well, I would imagine with an opportunity like this, there's a lot of demand. How do you select who's going to be able to go through the program?
So our admissions demand far exceeds our capacity to enroll. So our admissions process is definitely research-based. We look at academic factors and non-academic factors. We look at cognitive factors and non-cognitive factors to try and get a full view of the students coming in. So we ask for 3 years of academic transcripts. So those are your grades, attendance, and discipline. There's a parent letter of interest. There's a student letter of interest. There are some short essays that you have to write. And then there's also a recommendation from your current math teacher and a recommendation from your current counselor or school administrator to supplement your application. For those students applying from virtual situations or homeschool situations or private school, we do require a nationally recognized standardized test, such as the ACT, the SAT, or the SSAT.
And what about for folks who come from underrepresented groups, women or people of color?
Absolutely. So one thing that has made our school so attractive for industry is the fact that we are disrupting what representation can look like in the STEM field. So at our school this year, 38% of our students are students of color and 35% are female students. We've done that very intentionally by partnering with community-based organizations like Boys and Girls Clubs, Girls Inc., Girl Scouts, NAACP. We're partnering with churches across the state. I'll actually be headed down to Mobile in just a couple of days to meet with the Boys and Girls Club down there to talk about our program. Now, it is important to note that with the recent decision from the Supreme Court to just reaffirm our stance that we actually don't look at race or gender in the application process, but we do work to increase the number of female students applying to our school and to increase the number of students of color applying to our school, because we know that if they're represented at higher levels in the application process, then naturally more will be accepted when it comes to enrollment.
Now, as the students make their way through this program, are most of them college-bound, or will some of them be heading right into industry when they finish high school?
It's an interesting conundrum that we face, because with our students in internship full-time and just the talent and quality of our students enrolled at our school, industry does want to hire students right out of high school. But we are a high school, and our goal is for 100% of our seniors to matriculate to the college or university of their choice. We just graduated our first senior class. There were only 17 in that class. They were our first group of kids that came in. Those seniors, the average ACT score was a 31. They were accepted to 37 colleges and universities, and they earned about $3.7 million in merit aid scholarships alone. And they 100% went to university.
How are you all measuring success here, and what are your hopes to grow the program in the future?
Absolutely. So our metrics of success are trifold. First, are we getting kids into the college or university of their choice? And how are they performing once they are there? And those numbers are coming back pretty strong, with our first senior class being accepted to most of their first choice options. The second thing that we're doing is or how we measure success is the fact that all of our kids are going into internship, and we need to know that they are prepared to address the challenges in the current workforce. And we're starting to get that data back from industry saying, hey, your kids know X, Y, and Z, and it will be helpful for them to know A, B, and C as well. So one thing that I'm proud of as a school is that we are reflective practitioners. We're not a school that can rest on our laurels and say that, hey, like this is what we need to do. This is how it's always been done, and this is how we're going to do it. But every year we look at what works and what doesn't work, and we pivot to meet the demands of both higher education and industry. The third metric of success for us is really increasing the number of partners in education that we have. Our foundation does incredible work under the leadership of Alicia Ryan and Peggy Lee Wright to ensure that the partners in education that are coming into our portfolio are not just mission fit, but that they are also able to provide opportunities for our students to gain real world experience. So to become a partner in education, not only do you provide mentorship, field experiences, or internship opportunities for students, but you also have the opportunity to have naming rights for a building or for, part of our campus. So if you look at how our school is funded, we receive a line item from the governor every year, and that allows us to operate as a school. It covers utilities, it covers salary and personnel, food costs. But the actual brick and mortar of our campus, the buildings that we're in, that is all privately raised from our partners in education. So our foundation has done an incredible job. They've raised over $25 million in the past 2.5 years to support the construction of this permanent campus. And with a grant that we received from the state of Alabama, we're going to be actually erecting a new student activity center in January, a $13 million building that is half privately funded, half state funded, that will also service campus. Our growth and how many students we're able to have on campus completely depends on our partnership levels. We do have plans in the works to add another academic building and another residential building that would allow for our enrollment to exceed 650, 700 students. But that will all happen as those donations roll in to construct our physical campus.
That's Aaron Brazelton from the Alabama School of Cyber Technology and Engineering. Coming up in our Learning Layer segment, host Sam Meisenberg drops into a CISSP tutoring session and offers some test-taking tips. Here's Sam.
Welcome to Learning Layer. On this segment, we're going to be dropping you into the middle of a CISSP tutoring session. So I'm actually going to be working with a student named Ethan, and we're going to be going over some tricky content from the CISSP exam. Now, even if you are not studying for the CISSP, I think the topic that we're going to talk about is still relevant, and we're going to be going over some general test-taking and exam prep approach tactics. So I think no matter what exam you're studying for, it will be relevant. So without further ado, let's get to the session. So I think overall you're doing, the right things. Seems like you have a good strategy and approach, but is there any content that you are struggling with?
Yeah, I think something that I've been struggling a lot with in my studies is the difference between due care and due diligence. These things aren't just really making sense when I'm reviewing my notes and going over it. So
don't feel bad. It's a tricky concept that, a lot of students wrestle with. But the good news is, once you know it, you really know it. It kind of makes sense. So before we get into defining the words, though, let's take a step back, right? It's always important to see the forest, and the trees. So what domain or what sort of umbrella topic area does this stuff fall under?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, it falls under domain 1, which is a lot of the managerial stuff and talking about what businesses should be doing to maintain cyber practices.
Right. So domain 1 is called security and risk management. That risk management piece is about it's the least technical, right, of all the domains. It's as you said, what the business should be doing. Now, due care and due diligence are actually legal words. So we're talking about concepts that protects the business, right? So you're making sure you're doing things in a proper way so that if, something were to go wrong, we are protecting the business because we're doing things to, as you said, help secure the business. So it's about like if a compliance, lawsuit ever came about, we're making sure that the senior leadership is protected and the business is protected. So with that context, let's get into the topics themselves. So easy way to think about it. Due diligence is sort of the precursor to due care. That's how they're related. What I mean by that is due diligence is like research. You are doing preemptive measures to make sure that you're not introducing unnecessary risk. And then due care is sort of the follow-on to that, meaning after you make some sort of business decision, you are then doing upkeep, right? Sometimes you see it as like all reasonable measures is a favorite phrase of IC squared. You basically are taking actions after a decision has been made. So does that sort of make sense?
Yeah. So if I'm following right, the due diligence takes place before you would do anything. That's making sure we have all our bases covered, kind of to say. Whereas due care, that happens afterwards to make sure that we're routinely following and making sure our business is protected, months, weeks, years after down the line.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's a pretty good summary. So also, I think you had a question, right, that you wanted to ask?
Yeah, this was one of the questions that I kind of got wrong, came back to, still was struggling with it, which is why I kind of asked this, brought this up with you, which is, the question is, before closing business deals, a best practice is to assess third-party vendors to find what risks exist and develop ways to manage known risks.
All right, stop. So just from that question stem itself, right? Because I think that the question itself then goes on to ask, what is this best practice known as? So even at that point, you should know the answer.
Yeah.
What is it?
The answer is going to be due diligence in here.
Right.
Because like some of the keywords that I'm looking at, instantly kind of hopping off is like before, seeing in the word assess, kind of developing and finding, it's things that you would do before entering that deal rather than afterwards.
Right. And the word assess, to be clear, you can do assessments as part of due care, right? Like, for example, vulnerability assessments, pen testing, that's all sort of part of staying compliant and doing, those actions after, for example, this business deal has closed. But in the context of a question, they're talking about assessing before you actually merge, before you actually, close that business deal. So in this case, that's right. It's due diligence. So what just happened? By the way, we should check the right answer. Is due diligence one of the answer choices?
It is the right answer choice.
Great, perfect. So what just happened is you predicted the right answer. You read the question stem, you thought about it, and then before reading the answer choices, you just went and found that. And that's how you go fast on exam day. That's how you get the right answer. So, Ethan, I think you told me one time you're a football fan.
Yes.
Is that right?
Die-hard Eagles fan.
Okay. Sorry, apologies for the Super Bowl loss.
Thank you for that. Still
can
hurts.
You name somebody who plays defense?
Darius Slay, probably, cornerback.
Cornerback?
Yeah.
Okay. So, that play where I think it's called jumping the route. They sort of anticipate the throw or the route and they kind of jump in front and intercept the ball.
Yep.
That's the feeling you should have on exam day when you're going through a question. You got to be proactive, not reactive. The answer choices are the scary, confusing places. The question stem is where you want to do all that hard work of thinking about the answer choice, predicting it. That way you don't get confused by the answer choices.
Gotcha.
And if you predict and it's not there, then it's time to panic, right? Then you can sort of figure things out. But all of the sort of thinking and hard work should be happening in the question stem. If you do a question, it takes you a minute and a half. The 60 seconds should really be spent on the question stem before you get to the answer choices.
That makes sense.
Thank you for joining me on today's Learning Layer. Hopefully you got something out of that tutoring session with Ethan. And if you yourself are studying for a cybersecurity certification exam, whether it be CISSP or another one, and you have some tough questions that you want to throw my way, please feel free to email me at learninglayer@n2k.com. Happy studying.
That's my N2K colleague Sam Meisenberg with the Learning Layer. Meet Mimecast. They're in the business of taking companies at risk of cyber attack and putting them at ease. Picture this. It's Monday morning. You're cruising through hundreds of unread emails. Your impulse to promptly click, download, or respond could be a prompt to launch a cyber attack. An email address is a direct digital path to the mind, the machine, and the data of every person in your organization. It needs better security. I know what you're thinking. I'm all set. I have Microsoft 365 protection, Dave. It might not be enough. That's where Mimecast comes in. They've developed a system that fortifies your email security and reduces costs, risks, and complexities, enabling you and your business to work protected. So before you click your next email, visit mimecast.com to start your free 30-day trial. And that's the CyberWire. For links to all of today's stories, check out our daily briefing at thecyberwire.com. We'd love to know what you think of this podcast. You can email us at cyberwire@n2k.com. Your feedback helps us ensure we're delivering the information and insights that help keep you a step ahead in the rapidly changing world of cybersecurity. We're privileged that N2K and podcasts like the CyberWire are part of the daily intelligence routine of many of the most influential leaders and operators in the public and private sector, as well as the critical security teams supporting the Fortune 500 and many of the world's preeminent intelligence and law enforcement agencies. N2K Strategic Workforce Intelligence optimizes the value of your biggest investment, your people. We make you smarter about your team while making your team smarter. Learn more at n2k.com. This episode was produced by Liz Irvin and senior producer Jennifer Iben. Our mixer is Trey Hester, with original music by Elliot Peltzman. The show was written by our editorial staff. Our executive editor is Peter Kilpie, and I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here tomorrow. One final note, if you missed our recent panel discussion with my friends at Unit 42 by Palo Alto Networks and Dragos on securing industrial infrastructure, you can catch the conversation on demand by visiting thecyberwire.com/Dragos. And now, a word from our sponsor, SpyCloud, the cybercrime analytics leader. SpyCloud disrupts cybercrime by telling you what criminals know about your business and your customers, so you can take action to prevent ransomware, session hijacking, account takeover, and online fraud. SpyCloud constantly recaptures and analyzes new data from the criminal underground, including credentials, session cookies, and PII siphoned from malware-infected devices. With knowledge of the specific exposed data criminals have in hand from InfoStealer malware on managed and unmanaged devices, security teams can respond with a more efficient and effective process called post-infection remediation that fits seamlessly into existing incident response frameworks. Get SpyCloud's post-infection remediation guide outlining the 7 steps for preventing a malware infection from becoming a full-blown ransomware incident. Visit spycloud.com/cyberwire. That's spycloud.com/cyberwire. And we thank SpyCloud for sponsoring our show.